So what he does, when I'm in tune with the feminine side of myself, he allows me to see what's happening down the road. So when I was young, there were things that my mother just wouldn't allow me to do. We weren't allowed to say, Mum, can I have a drink of water? No, she wouldn't give it to me until I said water. Mum, may I have a drink of water? When I went to school, I got teased for speaking so nicely or speaking so beautifully. You're so posh.
They said, you ain't black.
Yeah.
She ain't black.
Yeah. For being posh. But what we didn't see and what they didn't see is that my mother was preparing me for something. She was preparing me for greatness. She was preparing me for greater than the environment that we were living in. So her mind had projected beyond that. Do you understand what I'm saying? And that's the thing about the female. The female may be in an environment as the tree. What a tree does, a tree changes the environment that it's in. It gives, it takes in the carbon dioxide or carbon monoxide from the environment, and it translates it into oxygen that we can use. So that's like us. We take in some of the negativity and stuff in the environment, or things that we can't use, and we translate it, or we transfer it into...
Traditionally, the women used to do that. The female was the one who did that. I'm
talking about the feminine side of the nature of God.
Okay.
We translate it and transfer it into positivity so that our children can absorb that, because a tree is an absorber. It absorbs some of the negativity within the environment and can transfer it and translate it into something that can be used within a community. But because the children have been cut off from their parents, you know, and it's not even only the feminine side of the nature of God. It's a female full stop, because mothers aren't around their children anymore because they're so busy working. So because we're so busy working, we don't even see what a female is like anymore, much less the feminine side of the nature of God. Dude, are you with me, brothers and sisters? So because we're so disconnected from the female, it means that there's a part of God, a good solid chunk of the essence of God that we're missing out on. So then what ends up happening is we end up leaning on our own understanding and leaning towards the path of least resistance.
And leaning towards the image that has been projected, that glossy image that's been projected in the media, music, TV. Yeah. So we now have girls and guns. Girls getting excited about guns. I know there. I was watching. What show was it? What film was it? There was a film where they were showing women in bikinis with some big time guns. I can't remember the film. Samuel L. Jackson was in the film. Yeah, and it was Jackie Brown, wasn't it? It was Jackie Brown. It was Jackie Brown film. And they were advertising these big guns because he was selling weapons at the beginning. They was advertising some big guns with these women in bikinis firing these big guns, you know. And there's that corruption now, which goes in line with what it says in the Holy Qur'an, that corruption has appeared on the land and the sea by, you know, what man's hands have wrought. And that is Surah 30:44. Corruption has appeared in the land and sea on account of what man's have wrought, that he may make them, he being Allah, that he may make them taste a part of that which they have done, so that they may return. Yeah. So the female now has been corrupted in such a way that she's been destroyed as a tree. She's become like a lightning tree. You know, when a tree is struck by lightning, it's like it's frozen in that state from there on. No more does it produce leaves. No more does it take in carbon dioxide and turn it into oxygen. It's just like a skeleton of that moment in time. It's frozen. And this is what we see this is what I'm seeing with the sisters when we see them, the gangster sisters, the sisters rolling like brothers, frozen in that 90s image of the gangster. Gotta get me a gangster.
That's really fascinating. I didn't know that either, brothers and sisters. I didn't know that that's what you call suspended animation, isn't it?
Suspended animation, that's the word, sister.
That's really amazing. And you know what? We were doing a project on trees. We started a project on trees, me and the boys. And so the tree is so versatile that so much come from it. Egg boxes, tissues, paper, you name it. So many things can come from a tree. And that's like us as black women. So much, we are so productive that so much can come from us. Unless or until we're put into suspended animation. And then when we're in suspended animation, we produce nothing. we produce nothing. We become absolutely non-productive. And, you know, with us as females, with us as girls and women, you know, because mother isn't at home, we need to feel the female. You know, as males and female, we need to feel that feminine quality of the comfort and the support and the consolation. And if we don't get that at home, we're going to get it somewhere else. And that's why girls are hanging out together. I was talking with Jay, and she was talking about girls. When I was young, brothers and sisters, we used to say, "I don't like girls. I don't get along with girls. Girls are just bitches. I prefer brothers. I prefer boys." You know, at least you know where you are with them. But I listen to the girls now, and I listen to the way that they relate to one another. And in speaking with Jay, and she'll tell me about her and her friends and the kind of conversations that they have, where they compliment one another. You know, I like the way that she dresses, or I like her shoes, or I like the way that her body shape is, or her voice, or what have you. They're more complimentary of one another, and whereby that should be coming from the home, it's not coming from the home anymore because mum's not there.
Come on, sister.
So because mum's not there, the sisters are getting it out in the community. Watch the young girls, brothers and sisters. They hug one another when they greet one another. They hug one another, the girls. I watched them talking, hi. It's very feminine. It's a very feminine way of being. But what's happened is because they haven't had any guidance, and because they're not getting the support and the encouragement that they need, that they're leaning towards negativity, and they're getting the support and the encouragement from the male to go on and do what the male is doing. The Quran said, old men for counsel and young men for war. Because the elders aren't counselling the youngers are counselling themselves, and they're doing what they can do in order for them to survive.
Is it correct to call the groupings of the females gangs then? Because I know the media has really spun this thing. There are some gangs, don't get me wrong, there are some. But what is your feelings in your movements on the streets and your movements in the community? I know the media are quick to call anything a gang. And you said, you know, when you see groups of girls together and they're hanging together for protection, or they're hanging together to get that love that's not in the family. I know the media will spin that as a gang. So what's your feelings on it?
I think what you said earlier on, and I wanted to come back to it and I'd forgotten, but it was about definitions, brothers and sisters, and what you just said about definitions was so important, that we have definitions, and we have a definition of something in our minds that isn't necessarily so. A gang is just a group, whether it's a group of people, whether it's a group of cells, whether it's a group of nerves like in ganglion. It's a group of nerves. So
good one. Big lump.
Yeah, that's
ganglion.
Right. Which can be quite painful. But a group is a gang. A gang is a group, and a group is a gang. But what happens is we take it from a negative perspective and act like it's something really bad. But when you look at the Caucasians' history, they had gangs in New York. What did the gangs in New York do but establish a country and a government and everything of their own? What did they do? Didn't they start off as gangs?
Yes, ma'am.
There's nothing wrong with being a gang if you're doing right and if you're fighting for truth and if you're doing good.
Yes.
But it's only when it turns negative and you become like terrifying or terrify your community or cause
Terrorists.
Yeah, or
terrorize.
Yeah, and cause trouble and mischief and hell within your community. That's when it becomes a danger. But there's nothing wrong with there's nothing